Hey everybody, it's the Science Geek, Mr. Geis. Today we're going to take a look at the 8 characteristics needed for an organism to be considered living. How many characteristics are needed to make something living? This is our question of the day. We need to know how many characteristics there are and what these characteristics are. There are 8 characteristics of life that are needed in order for an organism to be considered living. An organism must have all 8 characteristics. If it is missing one or more characteristics, it should be considered non-living. Our first characteristic of life is that living organisms are made up of cells. Cells are the basic unit of life. This is a picture of an animal cell, more specifically a cheek cell. We could tell this because of the shape of the cell, which we'll get more into in Chapter 7. And this is a picture of a plant cell. We know this because of the cell wall and how square the cells look. We will also go over a plant cell and what they look like and how we could tell that this is a plant cell in Chapter 7. Our second characteristic of life, living things have a universal genetic code. Humans have a genetic code, as well as every other living organism. We all have genetic codes. Ours, as a human, is based on DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. This is a picture of a DNA molecule. It's a spiral staircase looking molecule. And this is a picture of DNA tightly wrapped around a protein called a histone. And this is actually what a chromosome looks like after DNA tightly winds up over the histone. Our third characteristic is that living things must obtain and use energy. This is called metabolism, which is the sum of all chemical processes that occur in an organism. There are 2. You have anabolism, which is building up. This uses energy. Think about a weightlifter that uses anabolic steroids. They're building up muscle. The other type of metabolism is catabolism, and this is breaking down, and this releases energy. As we eat, we break down food, which is going to release energy for us to use. Okay, the sum of catabolism and anabolism equals metabolism. So metabolism is everything that involves catabolism and anabolism in your body. The fourth characteristic of life, living things grow, develop, and die. If you take a look at the pictures from left to right, we have reproductive cells which grow and develop into an embryo, which grows and develops into a baby. Just to answer any questions out there, this is not my baby picture. I was never that cute. After your baby years and your early childhood, you become a pubescent teen, which most of you are right now, and you can enter your picture there, and then after that becomes adulthood. This is a picture of me on Isle Royal with a dragonfly that landed on my wrist. He was a pretty big guy. After your adulthood, hopefully after everyone has lived a long, happy, healthy life, the next and final process is to die. Our fifth characteristic of life, living things need to be able to reproduce. Alright, there's 2 different types of reproduction. The first one is asexual reproduction, which is a mode of reproduction which offspring arise from a single parent. This is very common in bacteria. They go through asexual reproduction and they split in half. The reproductive cycles are very, very short. Sexual reproduction is more complicated. It's a mode of reproduction that requires 2 parents to form an offspring. Okay, so down here in this picture it's showing asexual reproduction where you start with 1 and then you slowly split into 2. And sexual reproduction is when you have 2 parents. We have 2 different colors down here, and they exchange genetic information, which then gets fused, and meiosis occurs until we have a new organism which is formed. Alright, in humans, sexual reproduction evolves around the egg and the sperm. We need a sperm from the male and an egg from the female to fertilize and then we'll get an offspring from that. Characteristic of life number 6 is to respond to the environment. To put this very simply, there's things out there called a stimulus, and we're not talking about politics and the stimulus plan, but we could definitely work that into this. Stimulus is a signal to which an organism reacts. If the organism doesn't react, it's not going to end well for the organism. Let's take a look at this epic fail right here. A young man decides he wants to stick his hand on a hot burning stove. Alright, how does he react? He pulls his hand off of there, his skin reacts, maybe blisters up, and I'm sure he's yelling a few choice words. Characteristic number 7, living things must be able to maintain a stable internal environment. Alright, this is called homeostasis. It's one of my favorite words in biology. Homeostasis means maintaining a stable internal environment. Let's see if I could give you a couple of examples that will help you understand this a little better. So we're maintaining a stable internal environment, and humans have internal core temperature at 98.6. Okay, so if we're too hot, our body temperature goes up, and our body knows that it doesn't want to be that hot, so what it will do is sweat and release the hot temperature within your body. So sweat helps cool you down in a way. The other example is if we're very, very cold and we're below 98.6, our body knows that it's not where it needs to be, so it will start shivering. You might get some goose pimples or goosebumps. Shivering causes friction within your body, which generates heat, which will allow your body temperature to rise up to that 98.6. So your body wants to be 98.6, and it has some mechanisms to maintain that stable internal environment. If you get too hot, you sweat. If you get too cold, you shiver. Our last characteristic of life, living things must change over time, is based around the vocabulary evolve, which is the process of change over time. A lot of the times these changes are very, very small, and it takes a long, long period of time. Let's take a look at this picture of a giraffe. As you can see down by the arrow, it's change over time. As it gets further to the right, more and more years go on. Alright, a lot of scientists believe that a giraffe's neck wasn't always as long as what we see today. It changed over time based on the amount of food that was ready available for them. A long time ago, the food was in all levels, and it was very easy for the giraffe to get, but as the food that they ate became scarce, and that vegetation was located higher up, the giraffe changed, evolved over a long, long period of time. Now, keep in mind that this is a theory. Okay, this is something that there's evidence that back it up, but we're looking at evolution as a theory here. I hope that we were able to identify the 8 characteristics needed to be considered living. Remember, an organism needs all 8 characteristics. If it does not fit and have all 8 characteristics, it is non-living. Later on in the semester, I'm going to ask you to prove to me, one way or another, if a virus is a living organism. So please keep that in mind as we start learning about other organisms in this class. And I want you to be able to review these 8 characteristics as we move on. If you have any questions on the tutorial today, please bring any questions to class.